The world remembers few men who shaped history not by their years, but by the fire that lived within them. Among them stands one name, Alexander, king of Macedonia, conqueror of Persia, dreamer of the impossible. He was born in 356 BC in the city of Pella, under a sky torn by omens. That same night, the great temple of Artemis burned in Ephesus, and the prophets whispered that the goddess had turned her gaze elsewhere, to watch over a mortal destined for greatness. His father was Philip II, the warrior who forged a kingdom from scattered tribes. His mother, Olympias, fierce and mystical, filled his heart with tales of heroes and gods. She told him he was descended from Achilles himself, and the boy believed her. As a child, he trained with spear and sword, but his truest battles were fought in the mind. Under the tutelage of Aristotle, he studied philosophy, geometry, and the nature of power. From his teacher, he learned this truth: excellence is not an act, but a habit. And Alexander made greatness his habit. At 12, he tamed a horse no man could ride, Bucephalus. When others saw a beast of fury, he saw fear, and turned its eyes toward the sun so it would no longer shy from its shadow. When he mounted it and rode free, his father said through tears, "My son, seek a kingdom worthy of you, for Macedonia is too small." Those words became prophecy. At 16, Alexander ruled in his father's absence. At 18, he led the left wing at Chaeronea and crushed the sacred band of Thebes, the finest warriors of Greece. But triumph soon turned to tragedy. Philip was murdered at a wedding feast, struck down by one of his own guards. In the chaos that followed, a 20-year-old prince ascended the throne. He did not inherit peace, he forged it. Rebellions flared across Greece, but Alexander moved like a storm. He razed Thebes to the ground, leaving only the house of the poet Pindar untouched, a warning and a message. No wall would stand against him. The age of kings had ended. The age of conquest had begun. In 334 BC, he crossed the Hellespont with 40,000 men, Macedonians, Greeks, and dreamers. He flung a spear into the Asian soil and claimed, "I take this land not as gift, but as conquest." At the Granicus River, he met the Persian satraps. Their cavalry waited, sure the Macedonian boy king would fall, but Alexander charged through the river, his silver armor flashing like lightning. By dusk, the Persians were broken. Asia Minor was his. He marched south, city by city, defeating armies 10 times his number, and wherever he went, he brought not just war, but vision. He restored temples, spared those who submitted, and won loyalty through respect. At Issus, he faced Darius III, the great king of Persia, commanding an army that stretched across the horizon. Outnumbered 5-1, Alexander refused to retreat. He drove straight for Darius's chariot, and when the Persian king fled, his empire began to crumble. In victory, Alexander found not arrogance, but destiny. He treated Darius's captured family with honor, saying, "You have nothing to fear from Alexander, for he wars only against kings, not women." The world began to see not a conqueror, but a ruler born to unite. Then came Tyre, a fortress city upon the sea. Its walls rose from the waves, unreachable, defiant. But Alexander was patient. He built a causeway stone by stone, turning the ocean into land. After 7 months, Tyre fell, and the sea ran red. The message spread like thunder. No city was beyond his reach. In Egypt, he was welcomed not as a conqueror, but as a god. The priests of Amun at the oasis of Siwa greeted him as son of Zeus Amun. What he heard in that silent temple, no one ever knew. But when he emerged, his eyes burned with conviction. He founded a city on the Nile, Alexandria, a beacon of knowledge and empire. It would one day house the greatest library the world had ever seen. In 331 BC, he met Darius again, this time on the plains of Gaugamela. The Persian army was vast, its chariots armed with scythes, its elephants ready to crush. But Alexander saw the flaw in its heart. He led his cavalry in a brilliant wedge formation, cutting through the enemy's center like a blade through silk. Darius fled once more, and with him fled the Persian Empire. From the Aegean to the Indus, the world now belonged to Alexander. He entered Babylon, the city of gods. and its people hailed him as their lord. In Persepolis, he stood before the palaces of the great kings, symbols of centuries of power, and burned them to the ground. Some say it was revenge for the burning of Athens. Others say it was the act of a man who realized he had become the very empire he sought to destroy. Yet conquest brought not peace, but restlessness. Alexander pressed ever eastward, through the mountains of Bactria, through deserts that devoured armies, until he reached the edge of the known world. There he met Roxana, a Bactrian princess of fierce spirit and luminous eyes. He married her, not as a conqueror, but as a man seeking connection in the endless march of destiny. He dreamed now of unity, a world not divided by tribe or tongue, but joined under one crown, one people. He began to dress like Persians, took Eastern soldiers into his ranks, and called his men brothers. But not all shared his vision. To some, he was no longer Macedonian, but something greater and more distant. In India, his army reached the river Hydaspes, where he faced King Porus, a ruler who came to battle atop an elephant armored in gold. The monsoon poured, thunder roared, and the two kings met in the storm. Alexander triumphed, but when Porus was brought before him in chains, he asked, "How would you have me treat you?" Porus replied, "As a king." And Alexander, moved by the courage of an equal, freed him and made him ally. At the banks of the Hyphasis River, his men refused to march farther. After years of conquest, they longed for home. Alexander stood before them, the greatest army the world had ever known, and saw in their eyes the truth. Even gods must yield to the hearts of men. He turned back. On the return journey, Bucephalus, his faithful companion since childhood, fell in battle. Alexander wept and founded a city in his name. It was the only time history remembers him shedding tears. By the time he returned to Babylon, the conqueror of worlds was only 32. But within him, the fire that had burned since youth began to consume its vessel. He drank, planned new campaigns, and dreamed of oceans yet to cross. Then fever struck. For 11 days he lay silent. His generals gathered at his bedside. When they asked to whom he left his empire, he whispered, "To the strongest." And with that, the flame of Alexander went out. He died immortal, but his legend became immortal. No map could hold the borders of his ambition. No tomb could contain the echo of his name. In 11 years, he had conquered the world, and in death, he conquered time. From Greece to India, his cities bore his name. His vision of unity, though never fulfilled, ignited the dreams of generations to come. Emperors, philosophers, dreamers, all chasing that same impossible horizon. For Alexander did not merely seek empire, he sought eternity, and in that, he succeeded.
Like and subscribe.